Becky Miss B. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you are a regular subscriber, thank you so much for joining us. Right, today we are talking about our first trip, which we did as a family since the travel air bridges opened up in the UK. Now, if you're still not aware about what a travel air bridge is, please look back on the channel. I did a video about this 2 weeks ago, and a list of countries can be found on the Foreign Office travel website of where we can go now without risking the 14-day quarantine. I will also say that please do check independently on a regular basis because this may change, and at the time of my last video, Spain was not on a quarantine for 14 days, but at the moment it is. Okay, so just thought I'd share that with you right away, and also more importantly to say the Foreign Office does advise against unnecessary travel. Okay, so just because we've got the travel air bridges, it does not mean that corona or the virus or the pandemic is over. It just means that this air bridges is agreement between certain countries where there is a low or lower rates of infection or at the moment. Okay, so that is what it is. So just going to go straight in ahead, and I will also say at this point it was a very interesting trip. So we took this trip on the 24th of July 2020, and the trip was to Amsterdam, and we traveled from Terminal 5. Like everybody else, I did my precautionary measures. We had our masks, we had our sanitation, we made sure that our bags were packed accordingly so that we don't have to be taking out luggage at the airport. And we traveled on with our own car, and then left it in the car parking lot just to minimize person-to-person contact as much as we can. So we did a lot of those to minimize as much as we can. And the airports as well, they've done a lot as well to minimize the risk of infection. Again, like I say, I am not a doctor or a health precaution, but we just did the best that we could and followed the regulations. Now, we flew with British Airways. Of course, you get you have to update your passenger information as normal. There is new videos on there, new information of what to expect when you get to the airport. So we were well prepared, or we think we were very well prepared. So we took our masks as standard. We had a couple of sanitizers, but I will say about the sanitizers, my sons suffer a little bit from eczema, so it wasn't really good on their hands. So we preferred for them to use it in the palm, and then we would locate the toilets and get them to wash their hands, whenever was convenient and possible. At the moment, and I don't know if this has changed, remember this trip was taken on the 24th of July 2020. At that time, only Terminal 2 at Heathrow and Terminal 5 was open. So arriving at the terminal, parking our car, and also heading off to the lifts. They've got these little signage that the lift button is cleaned by some UV sanitation sort of thing on there. So it was just very welcome to see that sign. And as we walked into the airport, I'll probably have a couple of pictures sliding along. As we walked into the airport, there is signage. Okay, there's signage everywhere that's been put up about distancing. There's signaging about masks. There's also signage about thermal screening. So they were trialing out thermal screening at the airport. So what that does, it screens your whole body. Nobody's standing there with a temperature check. No, it just screens your whole body, groups of people as they walk by, and there's somebody behind those stations who's checking the temperature. So then, it will tell if somebody is very, very hot, or, have got a spiked temperature. And I suppose if you do, then probably they will stop you. But walking, it wasn't meant to feel like, you one person, then the next one. No, you're walking along and, there's temperature checked. Now, the airport was not that busy. Okay, so there was a lot. They've got time for this. The airport was not that busy because remember, not the whole world is opened. There is a select few flights that are coming out. Okay, everything else is as normal. You can go stand and queue in to drop your bags. There was minimization of person-to-person contact. The staff, I will say, at the airport were wearing, they had gloves and masks, and there was some distances that you could stand to hand over your passports, and then they take your bag and then you put it on the travelator. So they're doing their best. Okay, so at Heathrow, I understand, and I don't know whether this is across all the whole of Heathrow, but there is about 600 sanitation stations. This could be across all 5, but I would say that when we were traveling, everywhere you could see them, so you could go and sanitize your hands at any time. So bag dropped off, minimal contact, went through a passenger check. Again, you boarding pass, scan it, and as you get in, and as well when they check your body, when they check your bags, and you go through the departure hall. So you put your bags as normal as what you'd normally do. And if they happen to need to body search you, they were doing it. They were wearing masks, they were wearing gloves, and they would use they'd use the machine first. That machine when you stand up like this, you go, and they'd use the machine first, or they'd use the hand scanner, and then they would still ask you, "Ma'am, can we search?" On this occasion, I didn't get searched, yay! So, but my little son did, and you know what? It was all very, it was all very decent, and it was all within regulation. There's nothing else you can do if you're traveling. That's just one of the, it just comes with the travel, I suppose. So once we've passed there, we were going to go into a lounge and just have some breakfast because it was an early morning flight. Now, I believe 1 or 2 lounges are open, but the majority of them were not. Okay, because remember, lounges, people use the lounge from different countries here and there, so I think they're trying to locate and track people who's traveled where and what. So we went, we tried to go into a lounge, and that was closed. So we ended up just popping over to Boots and getting the boys some sandwiches. Again, there is shops open, very minimal, and what happens is, you do have the queuing system, and you have the spacing system as well. In the airport, it is, you are wearing masks at all times. That's what that's the side that I saw in Heathrow. But in the stores, you are standing one person, 2 meter or 1.5 meters, and from the next person. The seating as well outside, it's spaced. There's signage there, and a few of that will show you on the video. There's signage to show you do not sit, and then the next person can sit over there. There's some pubs and bars that are not open. I did notice, I believe Starbucks was open, but the majority of them remain closed. If you're a shopaholic, or if you wanted to get a last minute gift, like I did, because we were going to see family, so we didn't go to a resort, we were going to see family. So there's a lot of 50% sales, and at Heathrow Airport, naturally, I think because they've been closed for so long, they've probably got stock that they need to get rid of, and also to entice people to travel. So there's lots of 50% sales off. Besides the shopping and the food, there is your UV. I understand there's UV filtration or cleaning that goes on that we don't see, or there's a machine that does that. I personally didn't see one when we arrived at the airport, so I can only go by the information that I've been told. But everything else, they have tried their best to make sure that people are sanitizing, distancing. And again, if you're wearing a mask, I did see a little bit of a relaxation in people in queues if they were wearing a mask. Okay, so I don't know if anything to do with people feeling a little bit safer, but I think everybody was in their own little mind of, there is a mixture of fear and a mixture of, am I doing the right thing? But the staff will tell you as well. Okay, so boarding time, when it got to boarding, so like I said, we were traveling with British Airways, and if you are regular traveler at British Airways, you know that they've got travel classes. So whatever group goes first, second, and all that, that was cancelled. That was not in effect. What they did do instead, which I found much beneficial is they started loading the plane from the people sitting at the back. So they would let you know that if you are traveling, if you're in row, for example, if you're in row 25 to 28, then you would go first, yeah? And you would open up your passport and show the member of staff. This is when you're able to take off your mask so that they can see your full face. The staff were covered and some of them were behind a plexiglass. Okay, so you show them your passport. They also scan you. You also self-scan your ticket, and the green light goes on, and you go ahead. So they were boarding people from the back. And then after that, the next four rows, and then thereafter the next four rows. So this is to minimize people walking down and up and down the aisles, I suppose. So once you're at the back, you're seated, we don't have to mingle and mix and all the rest of it. And then until they got to the front, okay? So we were sitting in row 7, so we were one of the last people to get on. I did say, if I hadn't said this at the beginning of the video, I did travel with my family and my 2 kids. So children under 12 do not have to wear a mask. They can if you want to, but I did get them to wear masks. It was coming on and off, so it was a little bit of trial and error. So as we were getting onto the plane, they were handing out sanitizer gel in packets and sanitizer wipes in packets. Staff had their masks on. Some had gloves, especially the one that was handing them out. So you would get this as you would get in and sit. So what they were kind of doing is, if you'd got to the front of the plane and people were still, trying to move down the aisle, then you'd stop a little bit and then they would get you on. So that was quite seamless. Then you'd sit down, the seats were clean. I mean, I'll do a different British Airways review. The seats were clean, and we'd booked and left a seat in the middle, because it wasn't busy. So we had, I had distance with my little son. They wanted to sit on the windows, and my husband was sitting in the other seat. And of course, we were given the message about what effects that, what they're trying to do to minimize, and advising people not to get up, during flight. If you have to go to the toilet, please wait for the person to come out. You're not allowed to stand by the door waiting for somebody else. So, to try and minimize traveling around in the airport. It was a short flight, so for us it wasn't, it's only an hour, so it wasn't much of a problem. There was no delays in takeoff because there's not many planes flying. Yay! So we were, off and up within no time. The snack service. Now, if you've flown with British Airways, you know that you were able to buy your food with Marks and Spencers, especially on the short haul flight. If you're in business class, then your ticket covers, a small a hot breakfast. On this occasion, I will say that before we flew, we got emails, of course, do you want to upgrade? It was very, very cheap. Honestly, the price to upgrade into business class was like £59, so it wasn't a lot of money if you wanted to upgrade. On the flight out, it was full, but on the flight back, business class had like 1 or 2 people. We were all given some snacks. They were a packet of crisps, a packet of pretzels, and a small bottle of water. They were all already individually packed in plastic bags, clear plastic bags, handed over to you, and it's not like nobody had to pay for it. Everybody was just given. So at that stage, this is obviously after we were taken off. So at that stage, some masks came off. I kind of kept mine on my nose and just used my mouth to drink a bit of water and stuff. But I will say that I'm told that the air filtration is checked and all the rest of it. Again, I don't work for British Airways. I don't work for the airline. I am just going by the information that we have been given and the precautions that they were taking. I will again say at this stage, I found British Airways staff very, very professional. They were answering any questions that you needed, and also were very cautious in person-to-person contact. So thank you so much. They made everybody feel welcome, because I suppose at this stage everybody is a bit scared to travel. Again, when we arrived on disembarking, the pilot did announce, before we landed, that do stay in your seat. When we land, we are going to disembark row by row. There's always a one or two that when you land, the seatbelt sign comes off, they try and get off. So they already had staff on the phone, on the announcement saying, please do sit down. Even to get up and get your bag, you were not allowed to do that. You had to stay in your seat until your row was called. And this time, of course, it started from the front. So, first 2 rows, then the next rows, and then the next 4 rows, it actually made it more smoother, and then you take your stuff and then you leave. So we were in the Netherlands. Again, the Netherlands airport has got thermal screening. Their distancing is 1.5 meters. The airport, I've traveled through Schiphol airport many a time. It was not busy. It was completely dead. My kids were running, were able to run without any interruption because they'd seen some sort of a robot, which was also teaching about distancing and saying, this is how far 1.5 meters is. So the airport was not that busy at all. There was some staff, around as well to make sure that people are coming off the plane and going via arrivals. It is not mandatory to wear the mask in the airport at certain areas in Schiphol. It will tell you that when you get to an area, especially passport control with a lot more people, then this is a designated, you have to put on your mask. But you can take off your mask a little bit as you're walking, as long as you're not within a meter and a half of the person in front of you or beside you. So as we were just walking as a little bit of a cluster of a family, we were, just took a little bit of a respite from the mask, and we walked along until we got to the arrivals, and then we covered ourselves with the masks. The gates, the passport control gates are not working. The self-check-in, you do have to go to an individual. They will see, and you'll take off your mask from a distance. They see that it's you. The usual, they ask the kids, who's this one, who's that one? And that was quite seamless. And then off we went to collect our bags. Again, Schiphol Airport has got sanitizer stations everywhere, information in Dutch and in English. Collect your bags and we're out. The airport as well, arrivals, there was not a lot of people. You'll see from the video, there was not a lot of people traveling. And then we were on our merry way, got our private minicab, and we went away. But I will just say that I've just summarized, my experience. And this was the same coming back, by the way. Schiphol Airport also does have thermal imaging. So you're coming in there, nobody's standing there measuring your temperature, but they are, it's thermal imaging around. And so if your body temperature is high, then I suppose somebody will come and stop you. Okay, coming back, it was the same process, minimal contact. They've got screens. It was a little bit of it wasn't busy, but there was a little bit of a delay because they were individually checking people. My kids wanted to buy something to eat. We couldn't do that because when you're in a queue and then there's social distancing and then you're waiting, and then some of the machines or self-service machines were not in use, so it made the queue much bigger. Very important to note that the day before we travelled back, there is a passenger locator form that the UK government requires you to complete. I will put the link to the to the form here on this video, below the video. However, your airline will most probably send you one as well. I got an email 48 hours. You're supposed to fill it in 48 hours before you travel or return. We got an email. It's about 3 or 4 pages. Well, mine was 4 pages because I had to put the kids in. So every adult has to complete it. But if you're an adult traveling with kids, one parent completed it and I added the kids. Then my husband had to do a separate one. And basically asks information about you, where you're living, where you went, where you stayed, when you come back, where you're going to stay, if you're going to self-isolate. If not, if you're from a travel airbridge company, then, a country, then you put that there. And then the address where you're going to be staying when you return. And as well as got precautionary measures of if you're feeling unwell, that sort, and including the seat number you were sitting on in the plane. Okay, so I guess this is like a passenger locator information. I don't know, for me, it just felt like, okay, you're trialing with me. Yes, I've gone there, and yes, I've come back. I don't know, but it was, you know, there are stations when you arrive at Heathrow before you actually go to passport control. Which will tell you, have you completed the form? You know, so once you complete the form, you get a form, you get a reference number, and an email comes automatically to you, which I will say, we did queue, right? Because remember, the gates are not open, so everybody has to go through immigration control. So we did queue a bit longer than what I'm used to when we come back. There wasn't any of the children's lines where you've got the kids in their own line that they normally do. So once we've queued, and the immigration officer will obviously ask you to take down your mask, they'll ask you where you're coming from, then they'll ask you for your passenger locator form. So you can print it or you can have it on your phone. We had it on the phone. Showed them. They will cross-check it against the information, because you do have to put your passport number as well. So they'll cross-check your passport number, your date of birth, everything that you put on there. He will do a quick cross-check, and the address that they have on the system, and also your flight reference number, your seat number. The same for the kids, you know, and then the standard questions, where you're coming from, that sort of thing. And that was it. And then you are off your merry. So please do not forget to complete your passenger locator form. You can complete it 48 hours before you arrive, you know, because it will want to know when you left the country, and, you know, when you came back, where you're going to be staying, your passport number, your reference number, your flight number, your seat number, just in case somebody else on the flight is found to be COVID positive, then I suppose they'll contact everybody and let them know that this is the situation. And, you know, thereafter, the rest of it is pretty seamless. We collected our bags. And again, Heathrow Airport was not, you know, was not busy coming out. We collected our car, and then we came back. So that, in summary, was just our trip. So the health notices, I'll say, are everywhere. Social distancing notification is everywhere. There's limitation of shops that are open. I'm just summarizing here, right? There is advice against travel from certain countries, or if you are actually transiting from another country, or whatever the case may be, there's different advice for you. And I will say, when you're completing the form, you know, there's certain people who don't have to complete the form, and there are certain people who, obviously, the company will do them for, like, airline crew, and this, so that will all be there. Yes, so, I mean, any questions, please put them in the comments. I will read the comments and respond as much as I can. I will say again, this does not mean that the virus has ended, or the pandemic. The air bridges are for necessary travel, and, you know, I suppose for some people that do need a break. But I would just say, please go with your country's foreign travel advice, warnings of what or where not to go. Okay, when we were coming back, of course, we'd heard about Spain, and so people from coming back with Spain, there was notices saying you do have to self-quarantine. But as a whole of it, I would say, well done Heathrow Airport, well done Schiphol Airport. They've done the best that they can to minimize, and we as passengers should also do the best that we can to minimize the risk of infection. Okay, so please do stay safe, mask up, and do check my other videos about traveling during the pandemic or before, and checking with the country that you're up to visiting, and make sure that you comply with what they're asking. In fact, I would say register online to have daily updates of what is going on in the country that you do intend to visit, if you intend to travel this summertime. Okay, your thoughts and comments are very much appreciated, and thank you for your time and watching this. Please do like and subscribe. I will be posting more content soon. Take care.